All 5 members of the Presidential Election Petition Court in Abuja on Wednesday unanimously affirmed Bola Tinubu as the validly elected President of Nigeria, a decisive judicial resolution of the credibility questions that have hovered around his election for over 6 months. In its over 12-hour-long judgment, the panel of judges led by Haruna Samani dismissed all 3 petitions challenging Mr. Tinubu's election in his lead judgment.
Having considered and decided that the 3 petitions, number CA/PEPC 03/2023, CA/PEPC 04/2023, and CA/PEPC 05/2023 are all devoid of merit, the petitions are hereby dismissed. Accordingly, I affirm the declaration and return of Bola Ahmed Tinubu by the Independent National Electoral Commission Annex as the duly elected President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The parties in the 3 petitions are to bear their respective costs.
The rest of the members of the panel, Stephen Ada, Misitura Bolaji Yusuf, the only female on the bench, Moses Ugo, and Abba Mohammed, took their turns to also adopt the reasoning and conclusion of the lead judgment. The petitions decided by the court were filed within 3 weeks of the declaration of Mr. Tinubu as the winner of the 25th February presidential election on March 1st. The petitioners were Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), who was declared as the first runner-up in the election, Peter Obi of the Labour Party, the second runner-up, and All People's Movement (APM), whose presidential candidate only managed to poll a little over 2,000 votes out of the 24 million votes cast in the election. The panel unanimously stressed the total lack of credible evidence adduced by the petitioners to support their cases and described some of the legal arguments of Atiku and Mr. Obi as fallacious and ridiculous. There was a mild drama at the Court of Appeal, the venue of the Presidential Election Petitions Court, on Wednesday, when the justices delivering judgments shut down an APC senior advocate of Nigeria, Charles Onwesui Edosonwa, apparently fatigued after 8 hours of judgment delivery by the 5-man panel led by Justice Haruna Samani. Charles Onwesui asked the court to be brief and either dismiss or allow the petitions of the opposition against the victory of President Bola Tinubu of the court, but was shut down by the panel.
Even if your lordships are going to say, your brethren are going to say their piece later on, sir, at least you all, my lord, well, you all should be arrested by saying it's either dismissed or is allowed. Huh? I was wondering if your lordship would not pronounce that it's been dismissed. So that
what are you saying?
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be confused, sir. I've listened to your lordship's eloquent judgment.
Sorry, please, Leonard Senior, you don't have to interrupt judgment. We are delivering judgment and we are still on. Please leave the judgment where it is.
My lord, I'm very sorry, sir.
If you are confused, when you get the judgment, you read it.
No, my lord, I'm not confused at all.
Okay, then please.
I'm making a suggestion.
No, you don't have to suggest to us how to deliver judgment.
I'm sorry.
So you seriously think that all 5 of us wouldn't know that?
My lord,
wouldn't know what you want to do?
I apologize.
The declaration came at a point in the unusually drawn-out proceeding when members of the audience in the packed courtroom had reduced by almost half. In fact, social media became the platform for humorous commentary as journalists and legal personnel appeared to be caught napping during the Atiku and Obi petition against Tinubu's hearing. The courtroom ambience seemed to have lulled some legal professionals into a peaceful slumber, which did not escape Nigerians' watchful eyes. Social media lit up with witty snapshots of those caught sleeping. The Vice President, Kashim Shettima, whose manner of nomination was a major plank of arguments decided on by the court, was present throughout the proceeding, but President Tinubu was absent. Likewise, Atiku and Mr. Obi, who was regular in court at the hearing stage. Mr. Samani said it is very clear that there was no credible evidence by the petitioners to prove the allegations of corrupt practices, and that the petitions failed to present alternative results upon which they claimed they had won the election. The court held that INEC was, therefore, right to declare Mr. Tinubu as the winner of the election. In what appeared to be a rebuke of overzealous supporters of the opposition candidate, Mr. Ada, in his concurring opinion, held that justice is neither based on technicality nor on justice according to the suggestive clout of pressure groups. The two leading opposition candidates, Atiku and Obi, individually asked the court to either declare them the winner of the election or order a fresh poll. Should the court choose to call a fresh election, they prayed that Mr. Tinubu and his party, the APC, should be barred from participating in it. They alleged in their petitions that the election was marred by widespread irregularities and corrupt practices, including manipulation of results, suppression of votes, overvoting, harassment of voters, wrong computation of votes, and inflation of Mr. Tinubu's votes in virtually all the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. They also alleged corrupt practices perpetrated by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) in connivance with Mr. Tinubu and his party, the All Progressives Congress (APC). They alleged that INEC deliberately refused to upload the scanned copies of polling unit results in real time as provided in the election guidelines to manipulate the figures favoring Mr. Tinubu. They also made a huge issue out of INEC's failure to upload scanned copies of polling unit results to the IREF, an online platform designed for the public to view the polling unit results in real time. This, they said, smacked of non-compliance with the provisions of the Electoral Act, a serious breach that ordinarily invalidates an election if proved. They stressed that Mr. Tinubu failed to meet the full constitutional requirement to be declared the winner of the election by virtue of his failure to secure a minimum 25% of the votes in the Federal Capital Territory. Mr. Atiku also raised the issue of Mr. Tinubu's alleged double citizenship of Nigeria and Guinea, a situation he claims disqualified the president from running for the election in February based on the Constitution of Nigeria. The PDP candidate, who lost the 2019 presidential election and a legal challenge to the outcome in court to the President Muhammad Buhari, also alleged, like Mr. Obi, that Mr. Tinubu was not qualified to contest the 2023 presidential election on the basis that a U.S. court in northern Illinois ordered him to forfeit $460,000 in drug-related cases in 1993. On its part, the APM argued as the only ground of its petition that Mr. Tinubu's nomination was invalidated by virtue of the double nomination of his running mate, Kashim Shettima, as both the vice presidential candidate and the Borno Central senatorial candidate of the APC in the 2023 presidential election. The Samani-led panel of justices dismissed all the arguments and the evidence led by the petitioners. The petitions were not supported by credible evidence, Mr. Samani ruled, with his colleagues on the bench also stressing that the same finding in their concurrent opinions. Election petition is a serious issue, Mrs. Bolaji Yusuf remarked in a clear expression of her displeasure about what she considered to be evidence-starved cases of the petitioners. A petitioner is not permitted to engage in fishing expedition or a roving inquiry as the petitioner's hearing did. The court also spotlighted procedural blunders committed by the petitioner's legal team. One such was the court's finding that the petitioners failed to comply with the strict legal and judicial authorities that mandate petitioners to file the statement on oath of all their witnesses along with their petitions before the close of the 3-week window for filing an election petition. Lack of adherence to this led to the court rejecting 10 out of the 13 witnesses called by Mr. Obi and 15 out of the 27 presented by Atiku. The court therefore expunged all the testimonies of the affected witnesses and the exhibits tendered. The court also dismissed a substantial number of paragraphs of the petitions that were adjudged to be vague, imprecise, and generic, with no particulars, such as the details of polling unit alleged irregularities took place. The court resolved all the key issues raised by the petitioners against them and upheld the arguments of the respondents, the INEC, Mr. Tinubu, Mr. Shettima, and the APC. For instance, it dismissed the claim by the petitioners that Mr. Tinubu needed to have won 25% of the lawful votes cast in the federal capital even when he had met the requirement in more than 2/3 of 24 out of 36 states of the Federation. The court said all votes are equal. As such, the votes of the federal capital voters could not have superior value. The court also dismissed the issue of the judgment of the U.S. District Court in northern Illinois, which ordered the forfeiture of $460,000 belonging to Mr. Tinubu and said it could not be a basis for disqualifying him from running for presidency. Ms. Bolaji Yusuf held that it was civil forfeiture and not a criminal forfeiture. She said civil forfeiture or non-conviction based forfeiture is not a conviction or verdict of guilt after an indictment trial or conviction. He said it was used when the government's interest is merely to recover proceeds of unlawful activity. She explained further that the criminal forfeiture is envisaged under Section 1371D of the Constitution cited by the petitioners is the seizure of the property connected with a crime after obtaining a conviction as part of the sentence for the crime. The court decided the alleged double nomination of Mr. Shettima as APC's vice presidential candidate and Borno Central candidate as untrue. The court held that Mr. Shettima had withdrawn his nomination as a senatorial candidate before he was nominated Mr. Tinubu's running mate. The court also held that the failure of INEC to upload polling units results to IRF, an online portal accessible by the public to view scanned copies of the result sheet in real time, did not invalidate the election results. The court said the collation process of results recognized by law is manual, adding that IRF is not a collation system. Ms. Bolaji Yusuf said the petitioners claimed that it was impossible to do a valid collation of results because INEC failed to transmit the results electronically. Both Atiku and Mr. Obi have indicated their intentions to appeal against the judgment at the Supreme Court, which is the final court on presidential election matters. Reactions have trailed this judgment by 5 panel tribunal judges. The president, who is far away in India, welcomed the development and asked the opposition to join him in building the Nigeria of our dreams. The court verdict brought an end to a long and contentious legal battle, but Atiku and Mr. Obi vowed to appeal to the Supreme Court, the final arbiter in presidential election matters. As the nation awaits the next chapter in this political saga, the echoes of the courtroom drama reverberated throughout Nigeria, leaving citizens both relieved and restless with the promise of a stable future. Thanks for watching. See you next time.